Hello everyone, this is Dimitri from DIM Studio, and today we continue working with the current version of the A-Parser program. Today we'll go over how to work with results, specifically by using several different parsers as examples, namely the Google Search Results Parser and the Yandex Search Results Parser. We'll create a preset that will allow us to display the search results obtained from these two search engines. And we'll display this information in three different ways. The first way, well, the simplest one, we won't consider plain text output. Yes, we'll be working with tables. So the first table is a CSV file, meaning we'll break it down into columns and display the results in columns. Then there's the HTML format, which is more visually appealing, more client-oriented, so to speak, and the JSON format. This is a highly demanded format when the received data is further processed by some scripts. And we'll look at all these formats, see how they're displayed, how they work using the example of one website and a certain number of keywords. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the first option in CSV format. I've already set it up. There's a lot of information, so I'll be showing everything on a pre-configured parser and explaining what's what. So our very first parser in this process is called SE Google Position, which essentially means Google Rankings. And here are my specific settings for this parser. I'll be searching within the top 20 results, so my results will be coming from the first two pages, or in other words, the top 20 listings. That is, it could be 20 results on a single page. It really depends on how we actually configure this parser. Here I already have a ready-made configuration. Here I set results per page 20 and I display one page. Yes, that means the top 20, and here in anti-gate and in the anti-recaptcha 2 settings I enter my Zevil settings. And in case Google suddenly starts issuing CAPTCHA challenges and Zevil doesn't solve them, I save it as a separate preset file and I have it right here in my list. So that's the first one, and yes, I don't set any other configurations. In principle, we can also add something else here, for example, if we want. For example, the country, meaning the nation in which Google will search for results, such as, for instance, Russia, Ukraine, or any other countries you might be interested in. We have separate columns for that, but right now I'm only doing it for one country, for Russia. And the second parser is our Yandex parser, also for Yandex.position. And you should use exactly the same settings for the top 20 format as you did before. When you apply these settings, the result will look as follows. Parser number 1 will output the domain name, which will appear in the first column of the table. In the next column, you will see the keyword output showing the specific keyword being analyzed. The third column will display the position, which is the ranking position in Google, specifically as determined by parser 1. In the last column, we will have the position output. For the second parser, that's Yandex, and then a line break. This is the structure or the framework that we will use in order to display the result. Next, I will enter the queries right here. That is, these are my keywords, the specific search terms that I need for my site. As for the query format, I set it up myself and add a file connection, where basically I only have my site connected. This is it. So here, this actually acts as a kind of key in the file specifically for my site. Of course, you can also add many different links there to various sites and search from different positions. Yes, so we connect this through an external file. So I connect the format, first the link, and then my query. The query is the text, these queries. Next, for the CSV, we need to specify the name of the CSV file that we want to use, and also add the column headers, which are the labels for each column. The column headers are important as they help us understand what each column contains. To make them appear, we need to enable the More Options button here. Then, right here in the initial text field, we need to enter the headers for our columns. So that's the domain, then the key, then Google Positions and Yandex Positions. Our CSV will use a semicolon as the delimiter. So it's one column, then a semicolon, then the second column, and so on. That is, this applies at the beginning as well. I specified a semicolon, and in the headers I also used a semicolon. We don't put a semicolon at the end, so there won't be an extra column. And here at this point, make absolutely certain to add a line break so that we have an empty line. This ensures that when the file is generated, the data will be written to the second line and not to the header. Click OK. That's it. Basically, I currently have a total of 50 threads here in this setup. Click the Save button to save the entire preset configuration, and then add the task to the list. When we add the task, our job or task will appear in the task queue ready to be processed. Here it should be processed. Here's the number of requests. Obviously, this will be different for everyone. And now we go to check the file that has already been created. Here's the created file. Let me turn it on right away. The delimiter is a semicolon. And here is our first setting, which is the header. That is domain, keyword, Google positions, and Yandex positions. And now, as soon as we get the data, we reload the file. And we can already see that for a certain domain with a certain keyword and Yandex positions, Yandex is currently showing zeros because most likely, well, it's 0 for me there. And what is 0 anyway? This means that he does not see this key for a specific, to the search engine, that is 0. This means that it was not found, or not found in the top 20, or not found at all. Most likely in this particular case, it simply was not found in the top 20 results. And so as we can see, yes, positions do appear here. This is the CSV output file. After that, we can easily import it into regular Excel and then make whatever edits or changes we want to the data. As you can clearly see, it actually looks really pretty right here in the table. If you have several domains, the corresponding domains for the queries will be listed, and you'll see the positions in this format. At first glance, not bad. Let's stop here for now and then move on to the next option. The next option we have is the JSON format. I'll upload it as well and explain what's here, what's what. It's basically the same here. We have the names of two parsers. The Google parser, the parser, Yandex, and the JSON settings. The JSON settings are basically the same. So here Zevel works for Google and for Yandex. But in my case, nothing is working right now. So here I just set the settings so that it's the top 100. In other words, I left it exactly as it is. Yandex, Google. You can also add an additional column for individual countries such as Russia or Ukraine if you wish. For example, yes, but then you will need to specify this in the results format, for instance, as additional rows. And here we have a structure like this. Site, meaning we have domain 1. So basically, we have one domain in this example. Then next comes the keyword and the position. And the positions for the two search engines. One is Google, two is Yandex, and the result will be processed in this particular format. And then right here we have our keywords. It's the same process. We send a request to the connected file via SAPS just as before, making sure the data is properly transmitted and received. There I have exactly the same link. The result will be saved in text and format, but we need to add both the starting text and the ending text. That is, we'll have an opening bracket, then the data, and then a closing format, such as a bracket. This is necessary so as not to break the structure of the JSON format. We add the task and carefully check the option. The only thing is, here it is for us. The txt file appeared for us right away, but we won't actually see anything inside it because the format generates an array. Yes, so some kind of hash will then be converted by JSON. And the result accumulates in this array, and at the end of the task, it writes the result to this file. So we won't see this online right now. We'll need to wait until the parser finishes its work and collects the necessary data for us to view. Let's wait a bit longer and then I'll click stop so the file is generated and saved properly. So let's stop our run, and after that we can check the results together once everything is ready. And see what happened to our file. Now in our file, a JSON with the requests has appeared, and we can see how it's being formed. That is the names, the keys, and the positions in Google and the positions in Yandex. So this is how everything is being generated. Well, you can adjust the view to have line breaks if needed. So that's how it was generated for us. And the last thing we're interested in is working with the HTML format. Let's delete it. And do exactly the same thing for the HTML format as well. I've also made separate individual settings for each, and here in this section it's the same process. We have a total of 22 different settings in total. This particular one is specifically for Google and this other one is for Yandex. Plus, as you can clearly see here, I still added the region separately as an additional setting, and here is the general format. This is how it will look in practice. It will look like this as shown in the example. This is basically a standard one, HTML. Plus, here we added and show that these are the top 50 positions. And depending on the result, we will also color the table in a certain color, either green or red. Here it shows that if there are fewer than 10 positions, for example, or if there are more than 10 positions and so on typically. So this is how the result will be displayed for us. Next, we will look at the identical queries using the exact same file with our single query and just one website involved in this scenario. But the format here is a little different. First of all, we use the .html format. And here in the initial and final text settings, we need to insert the entire HTML directly, a simple template. So here we have the head, the title. In other words, this is the standard structure. In the HTML format, here is the title section, which includes the following columns: domain, keyword, Google Russia, and Yandex Russia. Next, we have the final text, which serves as the conclusion of our HTML table. And here as well, I have left the parser copyrights as well as the closing body and HTML tags to properly complete the structure of the HTML document. So this is the standard format, and in the middle, the data from our parser will be displayed. Let's see how it works. Let's go back to the job queue and check that everything has started up correctly. And now requests will be processed in this file. Accordingly, a third file will be generated for us. Here it is. Let's open it right away. Here's our table. It's still empty for now, but as you can see, all the HTML markup is already there. Let's wait a little bit. Yes, here come the requests. And basically now all we need to do is refresh like this. You see, I refresh the page, and as the data gradually loads into it, you will notice that it will update. And in this way, it actually looks quite nice, especially if we want to present our results to a client. We'll see the data displayed quite nicely. Basically, if you know how, you can later format this into charts and various diagrams. But for now, this is the simplest format. Here we can see that the ones in the top 10 are highlighted in green if they're missing, or if there are more than 10, the columns will be red. And you can also arrange the key ones and sort them up or down by position in the list if you need to. So basically this is a standard HTML table. In my opinion, I think that it all looks really quite nice this way. That's all from me. I'll put the presets in the video description, so make sure to subscribe to our channel, like the video, hit the bell. There will be lots of interesting videos here. See you next time.